Well, hello, boys and girls. It's when we feel like 8 o'clock. I'm Pearl of Wisdom, and you're listening to my NHL Pearls of Wisdom coming to you live from Helen's place. If you don't know who Helen is, then you haven't been watching my videos, and you got to watch more. Okay, Top Shelf Hockey. I love that, guys. Go check it out. If you want rumors, he does all the work for us. And aren't those your favorite people in the land? The ones that do the work for you? Yeah. He goes and finds out what the big rumors are, and he tells you who they got it from, where he got it from, all that kind of stuff like that, so you don't have to spend all your days reading about hockey. Although that's exactly what I do, but that's okay. Anyways, big rumor going on, and it's been going on for a while, actually. It's that Max Domi from the Montreal Canadiens might be leaving. Max Domi came from the Arizona Coyotes, of course, as most people know. Went to the Montreal Canadiens in a trade for Galchenyuk, who was was not fitting into Montreal and hasn't fit in pretty much anywhere he's gone. He went from Arizona, then he went to Pittsburgh, pissed everybody off there, went to Minnesota. I like the way people go, like, basically they work around it and they don't really say what's happening. I don't know what's happening, but if you got a guy like Galchenyuk who's gone to like 4 teams already and they all ship him out real quick, there's got to be a problem there somewhere, right? You figure? Yeah, I would think so. So here we are with Max Domi, back to Max Domi again. Goes to the Montreal Canadiens, and they are already talking about shipping Max Domi out. He has a contract coming up, and I don't know what he's asking. It could be partly because of his asking price. It could be a lot of things, but I know in Arizona, if you listen to the talk afterwards, and these are rumors, so there's no factual information, and people don't like to do it because they don't like to blast somebody. So be smart and just take it for what it is. But the talk was, when he left for a long time, is he pissed a lot of people off in the room. And okay, that could be a bunch of bullshit. Sure, of course it could be a bunch of bullshit. But now here we are again, and Montreal, after a year or two maybe, is also doing the same thing. And this is a young guy, he's 25 years old, was almost a point-a-game player the first year he came into Montreal, then went down to 44 points last year, which of course that would also be part of the reason, and has a contract coming up, which that contract's going to be very difficult after primarily only getting like 40 to 50 points a year, which isn't still too bad for a young player in the league. So the scuttlebutt is that that he could be traded. It's enough scuttlebutt. I like to use that word, scuttlebutt. I just like it. It's enough that it makes you wonder. Usually a team, if it's this loud, would try to alleviate any of this issue because they're going to sign him and stop it, and that's it. And they don't want to have the I think if they were playing, they might do that, but I'm getting the impression that it's possible that he's leaving. So he had 44 points last year in 71, or in this past year in 71 games. They are going to play in the playoffs, so we're going to be able to see how he does in the playoffs, and that could change things. That could change things. The play-ins. It's not the playoffs. No, don't call them that. Even though it's exactly like that. It's not that. So don't. So let's say he shits the bed in the playoffs. Let's say it doesn't matter. Let's say he's just got an attitude problem, and they got to get rid of this guy. First of all, it's going to be a red flag to any general manager out there that you got a kid at 25 years old that's leaving his second organization before the age of 25. Also, the fact that it makes me wonder is that Arizona was not able to get more than Galchenyuk for him, who Montreal was trying to get rid of. That leads me to believe that a lot of people in the league had heard about and had reservations about Max Domi. and how his attitude might be with his teammates and whatever. Is he an arrogant jerk? I don't know. I'd love to know this stuff. I'd love to be able to have, somebody be able to come out and say, okay, this is the reason why there's a problem. But it's going to be hard for anybody to say, because if you're wrong, you look like an asshole, right? So it's going to have to be somebody that doesn't mind looking like an asshole. And that could be me. So I put together some teams that, even though that just may want to take a risk on a guy with some attitude problems, so they can put him in their top 6, and maybe think, okay, that my coach can turn him around, or this team can turn that around, or it won't be bothered because of our team. So I got a couple here, places that he might be able to go that may even overpay for him a tad, because of the circumstances in which they are in. My first one is the Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers are definitely needing wingers. That's quite obvious. Did a lot of things. They brought in Andreas Athanasiou for 2 seconds. They pretty much paid for a guy who was having kind of in the same situation with Domi. The issues, the rumblings in Detroit was that things weren't going well in the room and otherwise for Athanasiou. I saw him I watched him in Montreal and in Edmonton, and I saw a kid who needs to get in better shape. At the end, he plays 10 minutes in a game. At the end of a shift, he looks done. He needs to be in better shape. So he's also very vocal about things like veganism and stuff like that, which can grate on people in a room, right? So, that being said, let's say they decide not to go with Athanasiou. They give him they don't tender him a contract. They just let him go. They could look at Max Domi, and now the problem, of course, is they're pretty much capped out. This has been the Edmonton Oilers' problem for a while now, with those 2 big contracts for Connor McDavid, Draisaitl. James Neal's making quite a bit, and they're going to have to sign Nugent Hopkins. So they're probably going to have to send something the other way, which with Montreal is not a bad thing because they've got lots of cap space. So here's a player. I'm thinking they've got on defense, and I think Montreal is going to want to add to their defense. They're also going to want to add to their offense, but they may have to do it a different way with Max Domi. Adam Larson. They could trade Adam Larson back, take Max Domi, sign him to like a $5 million, and they're only taking on $900,000 in cap space dollars. It's a bit of a risk, but Max Domi does have a ton of skill. They have a lineup full of people like McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins that are like stellar attitude-wise. And they have a fantastic coach in Dave Tippett who just might be able to turn this kid around. Maybe the carrot of that type of offense to be able to play with McDavid and Draisaitl that they keep on looking for over and over again might be enough to give it a go. Just saying. They can also buy out James Neal too. So that'll add in more space. But Adam Larson, now why would I say Adam Larson? Well, they've got Matthew Benning had a stellar year last year. He looked really good. Caleb Jones looks like he's going to be a full-timer next year. Now, he plays left defense, but still, Matthew Benning can take that spot. You could keep Chris Russell for another year, or you can find something else on the free agent market. Plus, Ethan Bear has basically taken that spot from Larson. So they can afford to lose him. And I'm not sure they're going to get much more than a Domi-like player anywhere else. So it's possible. It's possible. For another team that I'm going to be looking at is the New York Islanders. New York Islanders have, basically, this is what I see with the New York Islanders. When they grab Gabriel Pajot, who I believe they overpaid for, by the way, way too many draft picks, $5 million a year is a little, I think it was it $5 million that they gave him? Yeah. Yeah, $5 million a year for the next, until 2025-26 is probably not bad money. It's just that they're already not in the best cap space considering that it's just it's weird. It's not what it basically says to me, let me spit this out, is they're not looking to get big players. Barzal is going to be their big player, and then they're going to build depth. And that's the way Lamoriello basically builds teams. He finds most value in finding offense from your third and fourth lines, and then building a defense that is strong all the way through rather than superstars. He seems to be kind of opposed to acquiring superstars unless except through the draft. Max Domi's not a superstar, and he could bring that kind of third pairing offense that this team desperately needs. They got guys like Del Cole, who I think they're just holding on to because they have to. They have nobody to replace him. They do have some guys like Kiefer Bellows and stuff in the minors, but nothing that screams at you that they're going to take over offense in their second and third pairings. Now, who could they give up for this? This is the tough one. You might be able to get Johnny Boychuk, but I mean, he's 36 years old, and is probably his career's coming to an end. Possibly there's a lot of talk about Nick Leddy. He's older, and they have some defensemen coming up that could take his place pretty soon. Like something like that. If you could get a Nick Leddy, he's only 29. He's a left defenseman. He's got a type of game that the Montreal Canadiens really need, that type of offense. His salary really isn't that bad for what he is. $5.5 million till 2021-22. Then you got to re-sign him again. I think they'd be very happy if they got a Nick Leddy for Max Domi, who's going to have a lot of red flags right now, and that's the problem. You're selling low on Max Domi if you're letting him go, because everybody knows that if you thought his value was high enough, you would keep him and re-sign him. They got all the leverage in the world. That's the thing. He's not into free agency yet. He's just a restricted free agent. So if they're leaving him now, they're saying this guy's just not working out again in Arizona. This is the problem. This is why I've heard I wanted to do this because I've seen videos or seen comments where people are asking for crazy stuff for Max Domi. And his value is just not very high right now. So you're not going to be getting huge. I would say if you could get Nick Leddy, who is he's a good defenseman, be very happy with that. And I'm not even sure you'd be able to get that much for him, honestly. You might only get like Del Cole and a second round pick, or maybe next year's first or something like that. Maybe that's about like the maximum you're going to get for Max Domi if you're taking on younger players. So it might not be a bad idea to go for some older players that gives teams a little bit of cap room, and just kind of wash your hands with that trade. You got rid of Galchenyuk and you got something back in return. That's kind of in the position they are if they want to get rid of him right now, if they're looking that way. So I got another team now. Another team that's going to be looking for offense and has some defensemen that they could give up. And are kind of desperate for offense. And that's the Columbus Blue Jackets. Of course, we know they lost Panarin and all the other players that took off from that team, Dzingel and just all these players leaving. And they certainly could add some depth to offensive depth there. Not to mention, got Tortorella. I mean, if Tortorella can't do something with Max Domi, then probably nobody else. And plus also the New York Islanders, you got Barry Trotz. But trust me, general managers that really believe in these type of coaches that can work with character problems, that's the reason why we bring these kind of coaches in, these great coaches, because you can find these projects like Max Domi, who you can get for a low cost, and your coach can turn them around. Coaches like them are so valuable, and Tortorella is one of those guys that can do that. So he could fit into their first line almost. Amazingly for Columbus. You think about how good this team is, and a guy like Max Domi, who's having a hard time on a very thin Montreal team, and possibly getting traded, could work on at least the second line for Alexander Wenberg. And you could have Max Domi, Dubois, and Atkinson, which is way better than having Wenberg there. So yeah, I think that's a possibility that Columbus could, when I say overpay, could take a chance on the fact that there are red flags here and give up something decent. Considering there's 3 or 4 teams that are able to do this, you might be able to work on some leverage to get a decent player back in return. Who could you get back in return? I'm thinking of a guy like Marcus Nudavara, who seems to have been like off and on with Tortorella. But from what I've watched from him, he's got all the skills. He's only 26 years old. He's got a contract to 2022. And I think there's more upside. And as it stands right now, he might be a little bit buried. Because you have Savard and Seth Jones, David Savard and Seth Jones ahead of him, and there's still, Savard's only 29 and Seth Jones is 25. So at 26, I'm pretty sure he'd be happy to go into a situation in Montreal where there are players that he can beat and get up into the top 4 and make that big dollars. And plus, it's and I think he can do it. I think he has a game to do it. And I think he would be good in Montreal. So you might be able to get him, and you never know, because they're playing in the 6. You might be able to, like the 5-6 spot. You might be able to convince him to give you a draft pick on top of it, or a decent prospect like Kevin Stenlin or something like that, to add to your prospect pool. I think this is my favorite spot if I'm Montreal. I really like that play. I don't mind Larson either from Edmonton as well. He's making 4.3, and his contract's coming up, but a new contract, the Montreal Canadiens can afford it. And he's he's an assistant captain in Edmonton. Everybody has said wonderful things for him. He handled that trade, which was a terrible trade, for Taylor Hall very well, and just was the best he could be. He's probably a 3-4 defenseman on most teams and can play in your 1-2 in a pinch. Montreal could use a guy like that. Always. Any team can always use a guy like that. So these 2 teams, to me, seem most likely. I mentioned Leddy for the Islanders, but I'm afraid that it would make their D-line maybe a little too thin to make that trade. Not to the big kicker in here is, what are these guys able to do in free agency? If they're able to grab some free agents that fit in their cap space, they may decide not to. It'll probably take a while for this trade to happen for Montreal in the summer. But if it's going to happen, I would say these are some of the teams that would probably happen with, and kind of the return that you would get. That's my full 42%, boys and girls. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and the bell. Don't forget that. That, like that. Just go, boom, hit that thing. And comment down in the bottom. I'll send you a My NHL Pearls of Wisdom necklace directly to your door and signed by me. And if you hit the subscribe as well, of course. Hernandez and Melissa, they have been not that busy lately because there hasn't been too much going on. So please, comment down there. I'll get the Pearlocopter out, shine it all up for you. Head it over to you so you get yourself a My NHL Pearls of Wisdom necklace. Until next time. Oh, I'm going to be doing another podcast with Steel Flyers. And that is pretty awesome. Go check out my collaborations I've been doing lately. I did Jamie Basco, David Staples from the Journal. And if you would like to do it, let me know in the comment section as well. Have a great day. Lots of love to you.